All right, we should be live now. That was about 15 seconds. Welcome, everybody. My name is Maggie Ullman. I'm the chair of the Environment and Safety Committee, this meeting that we're starting right now. Welcome to our January 23rd, 2024 remote meeting. All of our council committee members and staff are participating virtually. To help folks follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda as we proceed through the conversation. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub. You can access that through our front page. There's a link on the front page of our city website, the virtual engagement hub link. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For those of you with us, hello. And for today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in, use the number 855-925-2801. and meeting code 9477. Your phone will be muted. You'll hear the meeting live, and at this point, speakers will need to push *3 to enter into our speaker queue if you'd like to make any comment. I will go through roll call. It'd be great for folks, staff and council to come off mute and say hello as I call your name. First, welcome our Vice Mayor, Sandra Kilgore.
Good morning, everyone.
And Councilwoman Shanika Smith.
Good morning.
We also have our city manager, Deborah Campbell.
Good morning.
I believe we might have our assistant city managers, Ben Woody and Rachel Wood also. If not, they're in the ether listening, I'm sure. We also probably in the ether is our deputy city attorney, John Maddox.
Always ready to pop out of the ether.
There you go. Hey, John. Our Director of Sustainability, Bridget Herring, is with us today.
Good morning.
Hey, Bridget. Our Interim Police Chief, Mike Lamb, and our Deputy Police Chief, I believe Jackie is with Chief Lamb.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
And, hey. Oh, there, a different video. Great. Welcome. And then the debut on this committee of our new Fire Chief, Mike Case. Mike, we're so happy to hear from you. We know that you'll be kicking off part of our agenda today, but so very much welcome you to our community.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Great. Okay, now we'll go ahead and jump over to our agenda for the day. And to get us started, as is the tradition in this committee, we start each meeting and end each meeting with public comment. So I'm curious if we have anyone in the queue to kick us off.
Yes, Madam Chair, right now there are 3 people in the queue. Caller ending in 5584. I will unmute your line. You'll have 3 minutes to speak and you can begin now.
Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank everybody here for your service, for your time. Special shout out to Councilwoman Sandra Kilgore for your years of service. Please know that those of us who support the police department are very sorry to see you decide not to run again. You've been a wonderful representative for Asheville. I also want to thank the Asheville Police Force for soldiering on through a difficult and challenging time period. Captain, Deputy Chief Lamb, I know we're in good hands with you right now, leading the city and taking care of us. I'm calling in as a representative for the Asheville Coalition for Public Safety. We have not gone anywhere. We are still very active and are planning to have another community meeting in February. We are continuing to ask City Council and Deborah Campbell to consider giving a significant increase to entry-level policemen who are interested in joining the APD. We know we are not competitive with other nearby municipalities. We know that Asheville is an extremely expensive place to live, the cost of living being much higher than all the other cities in North Carolina. If we are going to attract, recruit, and retain people who serve this community, which is a tourist community, we are going to have to give significant raises to entry level. So we're going to continue to ask City Council and our city manager to really consider this in the next budgetary cycle. Also, I just want to say we all know that 2 businesses got randomly shot at over the last few days downtown. And I know there's a lot of information being put out there that somehow crime is down in the city, but I think, again, we have to look at all these kinds of petty crimes that continue to haunt our businesses all over Asheville. You know, cars being stolen, you know, vandalism, those kinds of things continue to be very problematic for our city. So I just appreciate everybody here and thank you for listening.
Thank you, caller.
Caller ending in 7629, you'll have 3 minutes to speak and you can begin now.
Hi there. I was just calling because I'm feeling really curious when you all are going to address the elephant in the room, which is Chief David Zach's sudden departure from the department, which is looks like adding to a long list of corrupt chiefs. I'm wondering when you're going to publicly be addressing the allegations of domestic violence against him. When did you all know this information? How deep in the department does it go? Who knows within APD about when this domestic violence occurred? We know that police are 2 to 4 times more likely, family members are 2 times more likely to experience domestic violence. And we know that at least 40% of cop family members have experienced domestic violence. And I think the part that really gets me about this is that we have an all-woman city council who stood in front of us and said that the reason that we needed more cops was because we needed to protect women. And yeah, I think that that's really disgusting given that it appears like our top cop was an abuser himself. Cops are abusing our community members, they're abusing their families. And I just am deeply frustrated that you all have been completely ignoring this. It's not a surprise to me. I'm sure that you've consulted with Colpro Media, your PR firm, about how to handle this. And it seems like you do what you do best, which is just ignore situations like this. And we're moving on while we're still giving cops more power while they're sweeping the streets when it's well below freezing and folks have nowhere else to go. It's cruel, it's disgusting. We're expanding surveillance on the community. And yeah, I just want to know where the accountability is for cops. You know, I'm not seeing it. And you know, you all have really done an excellent job, I guess, of completely ignoring this major change and you know, perpetuating the abuse of women in our community. And I don't understand yeah, how you all justify that to yourself. I would include that too with Deputy Chief Jackie Stepp there, who you're touting as your first woman. But as a woman, I wouldn't be able to feel very good about that. So yeah, we're all looking for answers from you all, and waiting to hear when you're going to talk about what really happened. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. I think we had 3 in the queue. Is that right? Do we have another?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, caller ending in 0852, you will have 3 minutes and your mic is now unmuted. You can begin. Caller ending 0852.
All right. It sounds like they might not be connected right now. We do have a second chance at public comment at the end of the call. So I'll slow walk towards the first agenda in the hopes that you can get back on right now. But if not, please join us for the second option for public comment. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so the second item on our agenda is approval of the November 28th, 2023 meeting minutes. Do I have a proposal to approve those?
Sandra, so moved. Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. I will do a roll call vote, as is our policy when we are in a virtual meeting. Vice Mayor Kilgore,
Aye.
Councilwoman Smith,
Aye.
myself, aye, 3 ayes. The minutes are approved. Okay, now let's move on to the third agenda item, where I welcome our Sustainability Director, Bridget Herring, to come and provide us an update. We all know there's so much conversation about federal funding. A lot of people will say that the IRA federal bill passed in the last year is the biggest climate bill we've ever seen from the federal government. So we're looking forward to kind of hearing more about this amorphous place of federal money trees. What's the reality? What are we already using? And kind of just give us some insight onto this.
Thank you. So again, everyone, my name is Bridget Herring, and I have the pleasure to serve as the Sustainability Director. And as Councilwoman Ullman mentioned, with the passage of both the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, we're seeing a large infusion of federal funding, specifically geared towards climate change and mitigation of that. And so I wanted to just give you a little overview of how we're thinking about this and how we're looking at opportunities as they start to unfold, and what we've been able to take advantage of and what we're actively pursuing, just to give people more of a sense of how we're going. I will note that a lot of the funding that's included, particularly with the Inflation Reduction Act, the guidance is still being written and unfolding, and so it's an ever-changing situation that we're keeping close tabs on. So we move to the next slide. The key takeaways and things I want to cover today is, one, talking about kind of the prioritization process that we go through as these funding sources are being identified and rolling out, and we understand the guidance for applying for them. We're already benefiting from a number of federal opportunities, which I'll share with you today, as well as the ones that are actively being pursued. And then speaking a little bit about how we're trying to leverage resources to assist both the organization in taking advantage of these, as well as for our residents and businesses that also have opportunities that are contained within the Inflation Reduction Act in particular. So as we move on to the next slide, talking a little bit about the questions that we're asking ourselves as we're looking at these opportunities that come up. And I don't want to come across saying that if we don't check all the boxes, we're not going to pursue something, but we at least want to be aware and understand, the outcomes that are going to come if we pursue a certain amount of funding. So first, thinking about how this federal funding might advance one of your strategic priorities, adopted plans, goals. One, we want to be in alignment with the work that we've already committed to in our community. Also, many of these plans have had community engagement and buy-in, so we can think about that community impact and what we've heard over time through that process. And then thinking about what's the level of engagement. So you'll see in the following slides that sometimes we are like the lead, sometimes we're a subrecipient, and we're working as part of a team. And so looking at where do we best fit, what is our role, and what is our capacity to be able to implement this, as well as our nonprofit partners, that might be involved in this as well. And then thinking about how is this going to impact our work? So maybe it's an unidentified plan, but it's, we had thought it might be coming further down the road. It doesn't mean we don't want to take advantage of this opportunity and move that to the front of the line. But then we also want to understand how that might shift other priorities. So one, we can be able to communicate that transparently and bring the community along to know why we are not pursuing different projects. And then again, how competitive are we? So a lot of these grants are structured in different ways in terms of how they want to get the money out into community. And so a lot of times we want to be a part of a coalition because maybe they want to distribute money at a higher level, and we would be more competitive as a recipient that is a result of North Carolina, for instance, getting that funding. And also, again, thinking about our nonprofit partners and do they have the capacity is the work that we're currently doing and that they're doing in the community match up with these opportunities to make sure that as we put that capacity and effort towards that, that we are competitive and have a really good chance of receiving that funding as well. So moving on to some of the ones we've already realized. The North Carolina Climate Action Corps is a new program that's part of the AmeriCorps program. So this is different and it's specifically focused on climate resilience and adding capacity to that space. So the city was able to be a subrecipient as part of that. Our fiscal sponsor with this is Conserving Carolina. So really thank them for stepping up in that space. And we now have an AmeriCorps fellow that's full-time with the sustainability department and will be here through the end of September. So adding some crucial capacity both to the city's organization as well as some of our nonprofit partners that we work with. And this fellow will be addressing some of our waste reduction efforts, our food policy, our climate resilience and climate justice, as well as our 100% renewable energy goals. So we're excited to see what we can do with that additional capacity as part of the team. The next one on here, you may, oh, nope, go back to the next slide, sorry. The Department of Energy Renewables Advancing Communities Energy Resilient Grant is a mouthful. The acronym is DOE RACER grant. This one came to council that we could be a part of. This one is led by the North Carolina Clean Technology Center and North Carolina State University. And we are a subrecipient on that, and we will be able to have some specific funding to take our emergency operation plan and look specifically at our vulnerabilities and building resilience to our energy use and what happens when we have a disruption in our energy services, particularly electricity. And the interesting thing about this is not only does that help us as a community become more resilient, but where it's also part of a team where Iredell County and Wilmington, North Carolina also received funding. So we'll have a peer exchange as part of this. And then at the end result, there'll be a best practices guide for local emergency managers to utilize in North Carolina. So excited about what that can do for our capacity as well as our neighboring communities across the state. And then finally, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant is formula funding that we've already put in our notice of intent for and looking to advance electrification of our municipal fleet with that funding. So now if we move on to the next slide, we can hear a little bit more about what we're actively working towards. So one new thing that's included in the Inflation Reduction Act that we're excited about is this elective pay. So previously, the federal government has funded what's called investment tax credits, which is for businesses and residents who pay taxes to be able to get a rebate on their federal taxes when they install specific energy efficiency or renewable energy systems. Local governments not having that tax liability haven't been able to realize that. And so within this new Inflation Reduction Act, there's now rebates available specifically for local governments. And so we're excited to be able to utilize that resource. And we know that we have 2 projects that will be eligible, which is the solar installation at the Broadway Public Safety Station and the Grant Center, as well as any electric vehicles we'll be able to purchase for our fleet. So looking forward to learning about that process. Another large bucket of money that's in the Inflation Reduction Act is called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund that has a number of buckets within that, one of which is called Solar for All. Again, this is structured to have large style awards that are particularly run by large organizations such as states. And so we have supported the application from the coalition called Energize NC. And that coalition is led by the Department of Environmental Quality State Energy Office for North Carolina in collaboration with Advanced Energy, the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center, and the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund. And what we're really excited about this is there's a particular focus in that application for expanding access to renewable energy to our low and moderate income residents. And so, as you may recall, when we did our Solarize program a few years ago, we developed a low-income solar program called Neighbor to Neighbor. And we're able to continue funding that through the ARPA funds, both from the city and the county. And so we're looking to have this be another bucket of funding to keep that program going and potentially expand it. So really excited about that opportunity. And then lastly, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. So again, this is a competitive process where they're looking at funding large entities such as the state of North Carolina. And they have to put together a list of strategies that will mitigate pollution in our state. And so we've been engaging with them on what strategies they include in that plan so that we'll be eligible to apply for funding through the state with that. So those are a couple of different examples of how we're collaborating with other partners to be able to access larger pots of funding where the city of Asheville wouldn't be competitive if we were the lead applicant in that situation. So now if we move on to the next slide, just to give you some more insight about the resources we have available to us. So we've been participating in the National League of Cities. They have what they're calling climate action boot camps, which is walking through different federal opportunities and tools that you can utilize in those grant applications to meet the requirements and be more competitive, as well as the Southeast Sustainable Directors Network and Urban Sustainability Directors Network is connecting the city with legal resources on how to take advantage of these tax rebates, as well as writing grants for applications. And again, looking at how are you competitive based on the programs and practices that we have in place and adopted in our plans already. And then next month, you'll be hearing about one of our pilot program initiatives with Buncombe County to help our residents and businesses transition to electric heating and cooling equipment. And part of that program is going to be giving more information to our residents and businesses about how they can take advantage of the different tax credits that are involved in the Inflation Reduction Act. So again, trying to get information and resources out so that everybody understands their opportunities, because this landscape can be a little overwhelming, as I'm sure you just received a lot of information about different opportunities, and there's many more to come. And so just wanted to give you a little insight on how we're thinking about this and how we are trying to process the information as it comes at us and take advantage of those opportunities. So that's really my last slide. The next is just a reminder of the key takeaways. So again, working through this prioritization process to understand, is this a good opportunity? Is this a good moment for us to take advantage of it? And then really trying to meet the moment and pursue as many opportunities as feasible. And we talked about a number of those today. And then trying to bring that access to our community as well. So if anybody has any questions?
I'll jump in with just appreciate having the update. I know that that comment you just ended with, it does feel a little overwhelming to figure out where these resources are coming from. And it sounds like you're navigating it really thoughtfully. I think the strategy of acknowledging we're only a small city relative. So all these partnerships at the state level that you're building and part of sound like a really smart resourcing strategy, a way to get resources here through collaboration. So that's excited. And to see, it doesn't surprise me that we've already gotten resources, that there's already stuff, resources flowing in from the hard work that you've been doing. So it's just really nice to understand. And it sounds like if I had to categorize the resources that have already come in and the stuff that's in pursuit, that when we look at our sustainability goals, there's kind of three ways I often think about it, of like, climate mitigation is trying to make climate change stop, right? So a lot of clean energy, renewable energy is like mitigation. And then adaptation is trying to prepare for things changing. We see a lot of like green infrastructure there. And then resilience is really building up our community's ability to like thrive after and as the climate changes. And so of the resources you're pursuing, I see a lot on that resilience side and some on that mitigation clean energy side, which seems pretty consistent with the policies we have in hand. We've been talking about climate justice. Council's priority is neighborhood and climate resilience. And then we have a clean energy goal. So it sounds really like you've been doing a thoughtful job of following the policy and getting resources for it in a hard climate. So appreciative.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts from other councilwomen?
No, Maggie, you did a great job in summing it up. Thank you.
You know me. Sometimes I have to process that way. Thanks, Bridget. I appreciate it. I know that pulling together reports like that takes time and effort, and it's just so nice to be keeping up with the awesome work that staff is doing and being kept abreast of it. So thank you. All right. Okay, we will head into agenda item number 4 on our committee agenda, and that is to, again, welcome our new fire chief, Chief Case, and hear, as we do now, quarterly updates from both public safety departments. I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the fire department that I'm very proud to have been asked to be to lead. So very quickly in coming to this organization, I found out how much talent is actually within the fire department, and I look forward to telling you about where we are right now, and where we're headed. And so real quickly, if you could go to the next slide. I thought it important to when I came here to study the mission statement that existed for the fire department, to understand where the fire department's objectives and where their strategies were coming from. And when I read this, it's not unlike many mission statements throughout the country. But what's very interesting is at the very end there, you see the focus on quality, customer service, and continuous improvement, and how important the community is to the fire department, and how important through pride and preparedness and their professionalism, they serve the people of this city. So all people, and so moving forward, when I was talking to each of our division chiefs and our leadership within the department, I made sure that all of our initiatives that we do continue to reflect what our core mission is. So I wanted this group to see that and know that all of the directives, as we walk through the next few slides, all refer back to our mission to keep everyone focused. Next slide, please. So these are my key takeaways, if you will. And basically it's pretty much just what our overview of the department looks like right now. Prior to my arriving here, the department added a third assistant chief, which was very beneficial, and is certainly going to support and move forward this organization and some of the city's goals. And with that came the opportunity to realign the department and some of the divisions that are in place. So ultimately, we ended up with three assistant chiefs, and each one of them has the broad categories you see there. One managing support services, one managing operations, and one managing emergency management. And then, so for staffing, they're doing that with a total of 292 and 3/4 civilian and uniform staff. Currently, we have an academy class in right now up at AB Tech with, it says 18 firefighters. We just lost one the other day, so we're down to 17 firefighters that are in that class right now. Daily on the street, providing our core services, we have 73 firefighters on duty every day. And that's divided up. You can see how it's broken down there. It says 13 engines, 3 ladders, and et cetera. But some of those engines also have a ladder capability to give us some more resiliency and more ability to manage vehicles when they go down. All of those people, all of that equipment are put in 13 total fire stations spread apart between 3 geographic areas of the cities that we refer to as battalions. We also have some people up at AB Tech in the training academy, and then also some of our fire marshal's office have offices in the developmental services building. So that's kind of where your department is and kind of the broad picture of what it is. Next slide, please. So what I thought I would do, and when I was designing this to put it together, was go through each one of those bureaus and kind of give you what their makeup is, what their focus is, what their mission is. And then I always thought it was very important to show you a success story for each one of those, one of many that I had found out that I want to share with you. But this is your command staff. This is, are the people that make it up. It's the chief, myself, the deputy chief, who you're all very familiar with, and Chris Bazinski, who had led this organization in your search for a fire chief and did an amazing job. And the 3 assistant chiefs, but also just as important is our voice to the public, is our public information officer, and our business manager, who helps us and directs us and shows us where we can go with financially. So that's kind of your command staff. Next slide. So what's that function? What does the command staff do? They're, as you know, we are the first part, the human resources. We do the budgeting, the financing, strategic planning, and bureau management, managing all of our bureaus. This group here, I call the compass of the fire department. We kind of point the direction of where we want to go, and then let the talent below us execute all that. So we provide that vision to the bureau chiefs. We set the priorities of the fire department. We ensure that all their goals that they come up with and meet and align with the priorities that we have. And we ensure that compliance with these, the fire department strategic plan and requirements that the accreditation provides us are being met. And then, of course, managing discipline with the help of our city's HR, promotions, risk management, and day-to-day HR related functions. And then importantly, ensuring our fiscal responsibility as we go through with all this. But again, think of that command staff as your compass pointing the direction for the bureaus. Next slide. So shortly after coming to this position, I created a document to kind of give that compass direction, if you would, to our bureaus. And I said that all non-fire suppression related strategic initiatives should comply with this direction. And I picked 4 important parts that I think that we should concentrate on, and that being employee development, our equity and inclusion, capital commitment, and then program development. And you can see I kind of put subheadings in there as to what those entailed. And then underneath it, you'll see where it says objectives. Those objectives I found out after I set these as our direction correspond directly with our strategic plan that was put in place for 2020 to 2025. So we are focusing on these 4 categories. Some of these are I'm very excited to bring here. Under equity and inclusion, in my previous employment, we did a lot of this. And one of the things that I'm very excited to start up here soon is on that last section there where it says establishment of select employee resource groups. And that's where we recognize and we bring specific groups and give them the ability to speak directly with the fire chief on the issues and concerns that they have that may affect retention and development of them as well. So, and it's amazing how effective these groups can be, especially when you empower them and give them the ability to talk directly to the head of the department. And I think it's going to really, really support the goals that the city as a whole has, but that we as a fire department are adopting. So, but anyways, this is the command staff focus that I gave to every single chief officer in the fire department at all levels, so that they know where we're going. So, next slide. So this is our Support Services Bureau. This is led by Chief Mike Coggins, who you probably all know. It is made up of 1 assistant chief, 1 division chief, and 5 branch directors. Branch directors being the people that are managing major programs within the department, for a total of 19 of our 290 some odd FTEs. In here, you can see with that, when I came here and with the addition of that 3rd bureau, we were able to add some detailed positions in there to assist with those goals that were published before. And one of those, that first block underneath safety and training, is our recruiting and workforce development person. So that we actually are now staffing a position in there to look at what it takes to develop our workforce and look at all the different things that come in with that. I vision that position working very, very hand in hand with equity and inclusion and looking at ways to bring in the results of the surveys that we've done internally, and also to identify things that may not be very apparent or always apparent to the leadership that affect the development of our people and the diversification of our fire department. So in these, as we go through these, you'll see some gold boxes in there. Gold boxes don't represent people, they represent a function that we're asking to be done in here. So for example, immediately here you see our work in the high school, Asheville High School, bringing about what it looks like to be a public safety professional to our high school individuals. But as we go across there, you can see that not only does the Support Services Bureau do safety and training, recruiting, workforce development, they also are responsible for the emergency medical side of our department. One of the things that I noticed when I came here from outside was that over 50% of the responses done by this fire department involve medical responses, probably even higher percentage than that. And we had one person on a detailed position assigned to managing our medical services. I look at that as an opportunity for improvement within the organization, and putting a more, currently EMS is provided by Buncombe County, and this puts some of the responsibility back in the city on the fire department to direct how we are going to handle medical care of our citizens within our city limits. So I would foresee more emphasis on this as we move forward. And then finally, the resource management branch, that's just our people that are managing our logistics supply chain and making sure that all of our firefighters and all of our bureaus have the equipment and resources they need to follow up with stuff. So next slide, please. So basically, we kind of talked about this, what we do. Asheville Fire is a recognized training academy by the state of North Carolina. That gives us a lot of flexibility in training our own firefighters, so that we can train them not only on the requirements of them to be a firefighter, but also, because we're managing it, install the values and core principles that we want our firefighters to have while we have them in that academy. So it's more than just teaching them how to be firefighters. It's teaching them what it means to be an Asheville City employee or an Asheville City firefighter, and the values that we want them to have. That academy provides both new recruit training and incumbent training to our resources in the field. The other thing, in conjunction with our other city departments, one of my big initiatives is to reach out and not be siloed or stovepiped within the department, but look at external relations with our other departments as well. And just talking to human resources the other day, we were looking at how we can bring some of the elements that they have into our company officer and chief officer training. Equity inclusion has already been involved in training our firefighters. So we really look at how training is more than just firefighting. Training is a lot about how to be responsible and have values that represent what we do in this city. So the other thing that this group does, Support Services, they are the ones that design and specify our rolling fleet, our equipment, our resources, and all that kind of stuff. So basically, in order for us to do our core missions, the Support Services Bureau has to be actively involved with it. Any questions on Support Services? Okay, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide then. So I want you to see this success story. This is how they're supporting us. So on the left there, under grant funding, you'll see the grants that this bureau has applied for over the last several years here for a pretty significant cost savings to this department, and upwards of close to $1.5 million. But this is in the hiring of firefighters. This is in some of our cancer initiatives. Firefighters, as you are aware, have a pretty tremendous propensity to draw certain types of cancers. So there are initiatives that we can take to reduce that. And one of those is the extractors that we bought that actually clean and take those cancer-causing things that are obtained from fires and hazardous materials incidents out of our gear. And then, of course, air compressors for our breathing air for our firefighters, all of that stuff. But if you look to the right, I have that column in there that says the Support Services Bureau has worked hard to provide AFD fire companies and training to put advanced EMTs on 4 of our fire companies. And this is one of the initiatives that we're going to expand. This puts us at one level below paramedic on the streets in the city of Asheville, providing care to our people, and it directly affects and saves lives. It's a very big initiative that we're advancing to go to go to all of our fire companies, and it is unlike the level by most metro fire departments within the state of North Carolina. So I'm very proud of this initiative. Support Services is running that, and it directly affects our ability to provide care to our citizens in this city. So that is advancing. By the end of the next 2 or 3 years, my plan is to have every single fire company in the city of Asheville at that level. So next slide, please.
And just to jump in real quick, Chief, like putting the 2 and 2 together of the example that you just shared, that essentially means that the type of emergencies that each of the stations will be able to respond to is more complex and more advanced, so that we can evolve to having more care on site than some of the ways that we liaise right now with other agencies. Is that kind of the advantage of your strategy?
Yes, absolutely. So if you think about it, all of our firefighters are EMTs, and our EMTs, by the scope of medicine that they're allowed to practice, pretty much can do supportive care, right? So somebody breaks an arm, they can put it in a splint and transport. But by moving to that next level, just below paramedic to the advanced EMT level, we can start doing definitive care and start actually addressing some of their problems. And instead of supporting them, we can start resolving some of those issues that they have in the field during our initial intervention. So you're switching from support them and get them to the hospital to definitive care and making a difference in the outcome in the field.
Part of what is really exciting about that strategy, and I just don't know enough about the technicals of your department to conceive of it, is that if we zoom out even from our department and think about the network of care that we provide, that the county provides with their EMT service, because the county is the one that provides the formal EMT service for the community. And we know that the county is doing more and more with their community responder to be getting to certain specific types of emergencies, that if we look at how we're partnering within the broader network, if we're advancing the level of care we can provide, that frees up our EMT partners to be able to focus on different acute emergencies or crises we're having in the community. That's a really neat insight that you shared. I appreciate that story. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate you bringing it to point. From my perspective, coming from another state, I came from Ohio, obviously, and in Ohio, all the metro fire departments provide care at the paramedic level. So to see, when I came here and saw that Asheville was above and beyond what most of the other metro fire departments are in North Carolina, but not yet at the paramedic level, I saw this as an easy win that we can start looking to see how we can budget and move this organization forward in that area. Okay, so this is the Operations Bureau. Again, this is the people on the street that are delivering the care. This is who the public sees, right? This is who is actually delivering the care. So the Support Services Bureau before made it so that these people here in this group can do their work. So that's led by an assistant chief right now. That is currently Chief Pat Crudup. Many of you know him, and he has 3 division chiefs underneath him, and each one of those divisions runs their shift. So we have 3 shifts operationally that work 24 hours at a time, and one of those division chiefs is in charge of each one of them. Each one of those division chiefs then has 3 battalion chiefs over 3 shifts, giving us 9 battalion chiefs. Those battalions are the geographic areas of the city. So one of those battalion chiefs runs that geographic area and reports to that division chief. It includes all the fire stations, and it includes the community responder program. So there's a lot of people in this bureau. If you counted all the fire stations and all the firefighters, it's probably our largest bureau as a whole. But to make the graphics simpler, I just stopped it at the battalion level. So the one part of this program that I am most proud of is the community responder. I think it's called branch here, but our community responder program. This has had so much of an impact with this city, and I can't imagine this not being part of any fire department in the country, for that matter, this tasking and what it does. Next slide, please. So this is what they do. This is what this Operations Bureau does. They do fire suppression, emergency medical delivery, the community responder we talked about, and community engagement, which I'll kind of discuss here in a minute. But this bureau, again, like I said, it's the one that answers the 911 calls. It's the one that when the caller hangs up, they're expecting this bureau to show up. And it does our core mission, of course, with fire suppression, structural fires, wildland fires, that kind of stuff. but it also is there, if Mrs. Smith falls down and just needs help back to her chair or into her bed, that's where we touch and make, I think, such a good impact on our department or on our city as well. So this group, these people are probably what our citizens see the most, and what their impression is. It's very important that the impression that these people give in the streets, in the field, is good for our public. So the other part of this, we talked about the community responder, and I'm going to give you an example here in a minute of a success story there, but is the community groups. One of the visions that I bring here, we already reach out to community groups, but I want to bring a vision of where we reach out to all the groups in the public, and we start biting them, if you will, with the firebug, and letting them realize, hey, this is what your fire department does for you, and bringing them in where they then, by virtue of seeing what we do, become our ambassadors, so that we're not the only ambassador to the fire department, but when they see all the good things that we do, we put them in a group together and let them think of ways to be our ambassador. So it's not just us saying, hey, we're good, believe us, trust us. It's our public saying, yeah, they really are. They're doing these things, and people in the public listen to people in the public because they trust them. They work with, they're around them all the time. So I envision this part of our community engagement getting much more involved within this organization in my tenure. Next slide. So this is kind of the numbers. I mean, if you look to the right, that big map there is a heat diagram. So you can see where it's shaded in more where most of our call volume is. But if you look to your left in the pie chart, you can see the types of responses that this Bureau is making. So there were over 21,000 calls for service in 2023. And you can look and see what type those are. But obviously on that far right side of that pie, you can see the medical side, about 50% of our response. And that's why it's important that we continue to improve that side and continue to grow that area as well. So, and fires nationwide, the fire problem is diminishing, but it doesn't diminish the need for the fire department. It is showing the need to have those people trained in medical care in the field ready and available. So next slide. So here's my success story here. Again, this is a redacted, if you will, because I took names out of it. Obviously, copy of an email that was sent to me about what we were able to provide to one of our citizens or one of our people in the field. And then to the left here is we call it the dashboard, and that kind of looks at where our community responder program is responding in that heat map, if you will, and how many kind of interventions they've been doing. So this is just a screenshot from a while back. Those are not the same numbers that we have out there today, but you can see how we are tracking these so that at any point in time you could ask and we can get you this information. But I think the important part here in this success story is that you see, we had an individual who had some issues and was calling a lot, and a lot of our city resources throughout multiple city departments were involved with the interventions with him. But ultimately, all we needed to do was reunite him with his family and make him able to get down and see his family. And he wins, his family wins. They're not worried about him anymore. And the city as a whole wins. And this is an easy success story because of the community responder program. It was just a matter of connecting the dots and having somebody that was able to do that. And this group was able to do that. So I'm very proud of, for every one of these stories that I could put up here, there's so many more that group has provided me. So, but next slide. So this is the third bureau that we talked about. So far, we covered support services and operations, and this is the third one. This is the one where the city allowing the reclassification of a person to this next level, to assistant chief, allowed us to reorganize and put some emphasis in emergency management. So I told you before, EMS was one of my views. Emergency management is another one where I see a tremendous need that we can improve on within in this city. And so under emergency management, you have one assistant chief and 2 division chiefs, and then 24 FTEs involved with that. So most of those are the fire marshal's bureau, the fire marshal's office. So the fire marshal comes underneath emergency management, And because they manage our community risk reduction, whether it's through fire prevention efforts or whether it's through notifying the public of, here's how you manage a flood situation, or here's how you manage a, snow emergency where you can't get out, or an ice emergency where there's no power. So that's all managed through there at the direction of the emergency management chief, the assistant chief. Also in there is our special operations bureau and our preparedness response branch, which we'll talk a little bit about. Next slide. So this is the kind of stuff they do. They are designing how we as a city can respond to major emergencies, right? So that we aren't left out in the cold, so that we have the ability to do continuity of operations, our COOP plan, if you will. This is the bureau that's designing that. We have the person that runs that, through Jeremy Knighton, is I found to be extremely talented and extremely smart. I think he's spoke to all of you before, and he comes in here, and I have a tremendous emergency management background from all over the world, and I listen to him, and I feel like I should probably go back to college and learn more. So I'm glad that he's leading that bureau. I can't imagine that he's not going to bring some amazing things to this city and this organization to make us much more resilient and capable of dealing with whatever emergency, whether the water goes out, which could happen from what I understand, or whether, we would have had 15 feet of snow dumped on us last week. That's what this bureau is going to be there for, to help us out. He also manages in here the special operations side of things. Those are the weird, like, non-firefighting things that require a tremendous amount of expertise in order to accomplish. That's our hazardous materials team, our helicopter rescue technicians that are in conjunction with the National Guard, our swiftwater rescue teams, our wildland teams, all the incident management teams, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, in conjunction with APD, our UAS teams that they're leading and that we're participating in. So these are the specialized trained people. I just sent an email earlier out today about the hazardous materials team that it comes underneath this bureau was recognized as the best hazardous material team in all of the state of North Carolina, and was sent to Florida to compete nationally and received an award down there for their competency down there as well. So you can be very proud of the hazardous materials team within this department. Next slide. So this is kind of some numbers for you. This is the fire marshal's office by the numbers, if you will, the types of inspections they're doing. They're doing all new construction, any new builds, and on a regular basis, they have to get inside of businesses to make sure that they comply with state codes and make the building safe for the people that are visiting it, but also for firefighters if they were needed to go in there. That bureau brings in, last year, almost $350,000 in permit fees that help fund, different initiatives for us as well. So, and then next slide, if you would. So here's my success story for them. You can see that special operations side, if you will, kind of the activity level that those people have. But really importantly in here, underneath the fire marshal's office, this is an amazing story of a little girl who had an obsession with fire and was setting fires, and our office got involved with that and was able to intervene. And through different programs that they developed, and through some conjunction with our work with APD, we were able to show her and make her understand the dangers of what she was doing, and continue to keep her in this program so that she doesn't have that desire, if you will, to cause these fires. This could have been very, very tragic. She could have, really, she could have burned down their home, and it happened. It had happened more than once. But this program that our fire marshal's office has developed has helped make a big difference here. So I'm very proud of this. This is where it hits the road where we've made a big difference. So next slide, please. So here it is in summary, right? So you have 292 firefighters spread between 3 bureaus. We impact the community to its core through our execution of our mission statement that we talked about before. That's the pride, preparedness, and professionalism that I'm very proud of that this department has, with their focus on quality customer care and continuous improvement. So, and finally, the last slide. These are my key takeaways. Again, these are your three bureaus: support services, people that make it so we can do our job; operations, the people doing our job; and emergency management, the people who are planning for the worst case scenarios. And we're doing it with 292 people. With our academy class, 73 people on the street every single day. That's a breakdown of what kind of fire trucks are out there at 13 stations in 3 geographic areas. So I hope that kind of gave you a real quick summary of the agency that I'm proud to lead. So, last slide. Any questions?
Excellent presentation. Thank you. Yes. Yes, that's what I would like to say. I'd like to thank you very much. It was so informative that I greatly appreciate not only for the city and the staff. I can imagine if members of the community were able to listen in and see all the intricacies involved in the jobs that you all do and all the services that you provide. I think that's just amazing. But what I would like to ask you, I know you were saying basically you carry all these on all these duties with 293 staff. Are we pretty much what would you say? Are we 100%, 90%, or as far as our staffing for this department? So
I think there are opportunities for some improvements, specifically in our medical oversight and specifically in emergency management. I think operationally, our standards or covers get looked at on a regular basis. We do have some maybe some deficits that we can improve in the far southern part of the city as far as response times for fire trucks. But as far as program management, I think our biggest issue is in emergency medical care and services and advancement and through emergency management.
And staffing, what would you say would be able to sort of help with that as far as staffing, increasing staffing?
I would hesitate to give a number right now, but I would certainly say, I mean, the addition of a fire station in the southern portions of the city, down near the airport, that's 4 people over 3 shifts. That alone is 12 people, right? So we the city just went through that with the addition of Engine 13, right? Yeah. So emergency management and medical wise, I think we have to cover the core of the medical mission, and that is 1, being able to support the mission, 2, being able to train the people to that, and 3, being to have oversight of that. And we're attempting to do that now through detailing people out of operations in there to assist it, but their details are not full-time positions. So we can cover some of that at the expense of our operations bureau and over time to backfill their positions when they're in there. And the same exists in the emergency management side. Emergency management can be, I think, as the leader in Buncombe County, is the largest department here. We carry a lot of the weight on that. And I think that when you look at the different aspects of emergency management, right now we're asking 1 person to lead all of special operations. We're asking 1 person to create a continuity of operations plan, an emergency operations plan that incorporates not just fire, but all city departments and incorporates the best interests of the citizens. So there's definitely some need for positions in that role.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Just echoing the compliments and thanks. Nothing like seeing the big picture to really understand kind of where you are, where you're going. And it's such a nice opportunity at the beginning of your leadership to have this just coincide perfectly. We'll say it was a master plan, but it worked out really nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we look forward to more conversations with the fire department, but we will move on to our next agenda item today, which is with our police department. And to this, I will welcome our interim police chief, Chief Lamb, who will give us our regular quarterly update.
Definitely. Thank you, Councilwoman Ullman. We appreciate the opportunity to present this plethora of data that we have, doing the overview of the agency, but we're also going to talk about some of the new programs that we have, including the drone program, and also give a crime update. especially looking at last year as a whole, but also the last quarter of 2023. To help me today present this information, I've got Deputy Chief Jackie Stepp, Captain Brandon Moore, Captain Joe Silverman, and Captain Janice Hawkins with me as well. So I appreciate their help in presenting this data. Next slide, please. So first thing I want to discuss is the mission statement and the guiding principles of the Asheville Police Department. So the mission statement is that we provide the highest level of police services in partnership with the community to enhance the quality of life. We provide public safety and maintain order. We enforce the laws of the state of North Carolina. We uphold the United States Constitution and support national security. We adhere to the guiding principles of integrity, fairness, respect, and professionalism. So doing a deeper dive into those guiding principles, we look at integrity. Integrity is honesty, compassion, trust, accountability. Police officers have the courage to do what is morally, ethically, and legally right, regardless of risk. Under fairness, the police department will treat everyone impartially without favoritism or bias. Under respect, the police department will treat everyone with dignity and courtesy without prejudice. And then professionalism, the department will deliver quality services through cooperation, open communication, and a commitment to continuous improvement. And lastly, the Asheville Police Department is an accredited agency. We're accredited through the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. This is a special accreditation. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we've had this accreditation since 1994. The state of North Carolina is now currently looking for all agencies across the state to have some type of state accreditation, but having this accreditation through CALEA puts us above that. So we have the higher standards than what a lot of other agencies do. Next slide, please. So the key takeaways from this presentation is that APD is organized into two bureaus and 5 divisions, and is committed to public safety through proactive policing, emphasizing community engagement, and conducting crime reduction efforts and investigations to reduce crime. Our staffing, we have a sworn staff of 238 with 75 current vacancies. We currently have 5 cadets in post-BLET and 5 cadets that are currently in BLET. And BLET is our basic law enforcement training that we do in collaboration with the AB Tech Community College. So we're authorized 38 professional staff with 3 vacancies. We also have 14 part-time employees to assist full-time staff with workloads. Our part-time employees are our retirees that have come back to assist us. So they bring a lot of training and institutional knowledge with them to help with the workloads. We've requested 5 additional full-time professional staff for fiscal year 25, and we continue to consider how other professional and civilian staff programs can assist full-time staff. And looking at our facilities, we have 1 main police headquarters, which is the building that we're in right now downtown. And we have 5 substations throughout the city. Our technological advancements is we have partnered with the fire department, and we're very thankful for that collaboration to implement a comprehensive drone program. And it's a drone program that was actually started in 2022. And lastly, we'll look at our crime stats for 2023. And the good news is that violent and property crime has declined compared to 2022. And one key point there is it looks like we're returning to pre-pandemic levels. So hopefully we will keep that trend going. Next slide, please. So now I want to talk about our executive structure. So first, Chief of Police, I oversee the entire department. I provide vision and set priorities in alignment with council and departmental goals, and I ensure fiscal accountability. So we have 2 deputy chiefs. Currently, it is Deputy Chief Jackie Stepp doing the job of both of those deputy chiefs. She oversees the respective bureaus, both admin and operations, and the divisions within each bureau. Ensures goals of operations are aligned with priorities set by me, the chief. Division leadership. Each division is led by a captain. That captain manages day-to-day administration, operations, and personnel, and ensures administration and operations procedures are in compliance with policies and alignment of agency goals. So these 8 personnel make up the executive team of the Asheville Police Department. Next slide, please. So our Operations Bureau. The function is that our patrol officers are assigned to 3 geographical districts and respond to all calls for service from the public throughout 24/7 days a week. The officers investigate reports of criminal activity and take enforcement actions when appropriate. Our patrol division is the backbone of our agency. They are the forward-facing officers that people interact with every day. Officers have responded last year to 109,535 calls for service. So that's, if you look at that, that's an average of 300 calls per day that patrol officers are responding to. When we looked at the stats from last year, our officers, because of our reduced staffing, are working 50% harder than they did pre-pandemic. So our officers are also expected to engage in community-oriented efforts within their geographic assignment, such as foot and bicycle patrols. They attend community meetings as well as be responsive to community concerns. Our officers are expected to proactively intervene in criminal actions taking place throughout their assigned area and also assist their counterparts in doing so as appropriate. So in looking at the calls for service last year, actually in 2022, so 2022 compared to 2023 is we had in 2022, 98,645 calls for service. So there's definitely an increase in what we saw for calls for service last year. Out of our patrol division, we have 153 positions allocated for patrol, and there are currently 47 vacancies within the patrol division. And, thinking about the way that a patrol division was made up prior to 2020, if 47 vacancies, that's a whole district that we're missing. And that's basically the absence of that downtown district, which had been the Charlie district. And one thing to note before we move slides is that the traffic safety division or traffic safety unit was a part of the patrol division. And we currently do not have a traffic safety unit. Those officers had to be reassigned. So the importance to understand that is that those are the officers that investigate traffic fatalities and those types of collisions. And so now patrol is having to absorb that. So that's one of our main focuses as we increase staffing, is try to get that restaffed. Next slide, please.
Chief, real quick, those numbers and kind of context was really helpful. How many people are on patrol on a daily basis, just citywide? And then how many, if we were fully staffed, would that be? And if that's like, you got to get back to us and that's quick math, don't worry. That type of context is helpful for me to understand too.
Yeah, definitely. So, just speaking generally, any day, we probably have around 16 officers that are patrolling the city of Asheville that are within the patrol division. Prior to 2020, we probably lost 8. So we would have 8 additional more, because that's what we lost when we lost the downtown district, the Charlie district. So that would help us. Having those back would help us to increase our presence throughout the city, but also especially within the core of our city. Currently we are filling those with officers who are having to work overtime. So we're concerned about the burnout with officers having to work so much overtime. And also those officers are pulled from a variety of assignments that work that overtime. And so I feel it's important to have that geographic understanding and also those relationships within the area that they're patrolling in order to help collaborate with community to be able to make Asheville safer and increase public safety within the area that they're assigned to, that they're responsible for.
Thank you so much. It's also interesting, given we just heard from the fire department, just this picture of, the fire department, I think they said they have around 17 people daily doing what 50% of their calls for service are emergency response. And then y'all have 16. So just kind of getting a picture of like, what does daily public safety support currently look like? What type of services are you providing across the breadth? Because public safety isn't just the police department. So thanks so much. This is, I'll stop holding you up, but thanks for giving that detail.
Yeah, no, great question. And now I'm going to pass it over to Captain Silverman to cover criminal investigations division.
Right now, the Criminal Investigation Division has 6 primary units. General assignment, and they investigate property crimes, assaults, fraud, and elder abuse. The Major Case Unit, they investigate homicides, serious assaults, and arsons. The detectives at the Family Justice Center, they investigate domestic violence, certain juvenile crimes, and sexual assaults. We have 2 victim services professional staff, one here at the municipal building and one at the Family Justice Center. They support victims of crime and provide information and resources. We have a forensic unit that's staffed by 2 computer crimes detectives and 6 full-time forensic technicians that are professional staff. They conduct lab work, they analyze things, either physical evidence or digital evidence, and they process evidence for the state lab. And then we have a street crimes unit, and they focus on violent crime reduction. They work closely with our crime analysts, and they do high-risk apprehensions. It's a very small unit, so they manage a series of partnerships and task force, including federal, state, and local partners. Right now, the division as a whole is sitting at, we have 38 detective positions. Right now, we're staffing 21 of them.
All right, great. Next slide, please. Thank you, Captain. So the next bureau or next division we're going to talk about is the Community Engagement Division. This is led by Captain Jonathan Brown, who's away in training. So I will cover it, especially since I was recently a captain in that division. So the CED's function is to focus on understanding the reasons why certain issues and crimes are happening within our community and establishing partnerships with residents, business owners, and stakeholders to address them. The division has 2 primary units. First one is the community unit. That is what most people recognize as our CROs, our community resource officers. So the community unit focuses their efforts to address community concerns and provide long-term solutions to criminal activity. These officers are assigned geographically, so they're north, south, east, west, and downtown. And probably most importantly, that's the unit that Cora is assigned to. So she's out doing a lot of community engagement with her handler, Debbie. So we appreciate their efforts. Next is the School Resource Officer Unit. We have 5 SROs that serve in a police role within the high school, middle school, and then the elementary schools throughout the city. These officers serve as mentors to students and are often able to be positive resources, not only within the schools, but also the community. What historically has been, and what still is actually a part of the Community Engagement Division, is our housing unit that is assigned to our public housing developments. Unfortunately, we currently have no one assigned to that housing unit. Those officers had been liaisons with housing authority staff members, each resident complex manager, and served as many community resource officers for each complex throughout the city. So that's something, hopefully, as we get staffing back, that we will be able to restaff as well. And it's unfortunate that we don't currently have officers in there, because we divide up those responsibilities between the community unit and also our patrol division, as well, be able to continue those. Yes, ma'am.
How do we assign for the division that services our public housing? Is it an assignment or is it voluntary?
So there's a selection process. It's a voluntary assignment. And historically what we have done is have a selection process. The panel for the selection process is a combination of community members, staff within the police department, and then also staff members of Asheville Housing Authority. So as we restaff that, we will have those community partners come in and help us to select who those officers are. Great. Next slide, please. All right, I'll pass it over to Deputy Chief Step to cover the Admin Bureau.
Good afternoon. Our Finance and Support Division is overseen by Captain Janice Hawkins, who's there with Chief Lamb. That division has two primary units, the Finance Unit, which oversees our police operating budget, grants, forfeiture accounts, etc., and also our Logistics Unit, which oversees all of our buildings, fleet, inventory, and issuance of all police equipment. Our Administrative Services section has two units, our Records Unit, who interacts with the public for whatever the public may need, whether it's reporting a police report through our front desk non-sworn personnel or through obtaining a report. Technology Division manages our Axon account, which is our body cameras, interview room, fleet cameras, our TASER program, and then our Crime Analysis Unit. They perform various activities related to collection, processing, analysis, and reporting of crime trends, patterns, and people involved to better assist our sworn staff with resource allocation. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. This one gets passed to me. So I am Captain Moore. I run the Special Services Division. So within that division is 4 units. This primary function of this division is to really support all the other divisions from a training, policy support. And then as you'll see, they also manage the evidence and ongoing planning for the agency. So the first unit within that obviously is our most crucial at this point in time, and it's our Recruitment and Career Development Unit. To give you an insight of, obviously it's obvious what they do, but we have 1 lieutenant and 1 sergeant, along with 1 sworn officer that runs all of our recruiting, our hiring, as well as any career development and training that's done within the agency. And so that unit stays quite busy, and they have been on it ever since it has become very obvious that we had to shift and try to do things from a different perspective when it came to trying to bring folks from within the community as well as from outside to get our staffing back up. Next is our Planning and Evidence Division. This is run by another lieutenant. His main job within that unit is to oversee the property room, which has a property manager, as well as ensuring that we continue focusing on a multi-year plan that guides the agency forward. Within this division also is accreditation. As Chief Lamb spoke, the agency has been an accredited body for quite some time. We are fortunate to have a full-time accreditation manager as well as one of our retirees that came back to assist with accreditation. Not only do they maintain what CALEA requires of us each year, but they are also a constant resource almost for every division within the department when it comes to what other agencies surrounding, as well as what the national trend is. Also, when we get new policies, procedures that has been dictated by law and how we're going to implement those throughout the department. And then it's still a fairly new unit, but the Integrity and Compliance Unit was started a little over a year ago. And it basically is saying that we are using this unit to ensure that we're following these policies and procedures, but it's a little bit more than that. We took steps to ensure that as we put programs into place that helps guide officers in their daily encounters, what they'll do, how they engage the public is done in a structured way. We want them to each do it in a way that would be similar as they engage with one officer to the next. And we want them to uphold the standards that we put forth. And so this unit, specifically 1 sergeant, is reviewing body cams and various reports and procedures and sending out responses to those districts, those sergeants, both positive and negative, right? We want to ensure that we're not just focusing on ways that we've done it wrong. We also want to make sure that we've brought to light the ways that we've done it right, and we use those as a training tool. So this unit is definitely a vital component that we've put in place, and I'd like to see it grow as well. Next slide.
All right, so far, key takeaways on organizational structure. Our department is organized into 2 bureaus in order to simultaneously focus on providing effective and efficient police services to the community, as well as manage logistics, budgetary matters, and administrative responsibilities. Operation Bureau serves as the face of the agency with regard to the public. while the Admin Bureau supplies the support necessary for the Operations Bureau to function. The bureaus are organized into 5 divisions that are structured to work together to support proactive policing, community engagement efforts, crime reduction strategies, and processes in criminal investigations. The bureaus are designed to work seamlessly and in concert with an overall goal of providing professional, meaningful, and supportive services to our community, and a specific focus on preventing and reducing crime and to seek justice for those who have been affected by criminal acts. Next slide, please. Are there any questions on our organizational structure? Okay, then we'll proceed to the next portion, which will be covered by Deputy Chief Step, and that is our professional staff and civilian programs.
Okay, well, our professional staff and civilian programs allow us to free up officers to respond to more serious crimes and maximize the quality of police services throughout the city. We rely heavily on the work from our crime analysis unit, victim services unit, police information desk, but also our temp seasonal part-time employees who've came back to help us. We recently, this year, we've reinstated our Citizens Police Academy and Explorer programs as another way to recruit and educate the community about police functions and ways they can become involved. We've requested 5 additional full-time professional or civilian staff for FY25, again, to better assist us and resource allocation to our sworn staff. We're also always exploring programs that are out there, such as House Bill 140, which passed in June 2023. And this allows municipalities to employ civilians to investigate traffic crashes involving property damage only. So there's a couple of agencies out there right now, Wilmington, Fayetteville, Greensboro, and Raleigh are either implemented or in the process of implementing those programs. And we've been reaching out, researching what that looks like. Part of what the House bill or what the law requires is training through North Carolina Justice Academy, which has not yet been implemented. But it is something we are exploring and excited about to see if we can bring to the agency once we're able to see how it's working for others, what the training looks like, et cetera. Next slide, please. So some key takeaways that our civilian staff is a huge asset to our department. Professional staff civilian programs allow us to free up officers to focus on more serious crimes. Our 5 positions hopefully will be afforded for FY25. And again, we've reinstated our CPA, our Citizens Police Academy and Explorer programs. I think we've already got over 30 applications, which is super exciting for our Citizens Police Academy. We're looking forward to that. And we're currently reviewing how other agencies in North Carolina have implemented this civilian crash investigator program. Next slide. Any questions?
Thanks, Deputy Chief. Am I speculating that you're still in the research phase to determine what type of programming you'd want to deliver with the proposed additional staff that are non-sworn? Or maybe just me be direct, like, what do you want to do with those people? What are you thinking about? Like, what's the purpose? I know that this committee's talked about there's a lot of ways to respond to an emergency, and we're curious to see what we can do more of with non-sworn officers. You don't always need that level of training. You don't need that someone that's armed with a gun, all that type of perspective. As you're looking to expand in that direction, do you know yet what type of programming you're interested in investing further in?
Well, the 5 specifically, we've requested 3 civilian staff to head our drone program. Right now, we're pulling sworn staff to do that. We've requested an additional crime analyst. We currently have 2, but serving the patrol division, the criminal investigation division, and then all of the additional requests from everyone in the community for statistics is quite cumbersome for 2 people. And then we've requested a radio programmer, a civilian radio programmer, which currently, we partner with the fire department and IT and some of our sworn staff to manage that. We have let the budget office know that we are exploring the crash investigator program, but we just still have a little bit more research to do to make sure that we're ready to implement that program. But they are aware that we are looking at that in FY25, just weren't prepared to ask for a number of positions right now.
And part of that is, if I'm hearing correctly, because the law says that there needs to be training, and that's would be state provided, and the state is working on developing their program. So it's not like we would be late to the table. The state is working on that. Others are interested like we are, but we need the state to do their work to kind of design their program and have it prepared before we even be able to pursue.
Well, correct. And then there's, that fleet, there's a number of equipment things that we just want to reach out to other agents to see how it's working for them as well as the training.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of my last question is, in this proposal, and for anyone listening, every department pulls together their proposals. They go to the budget office, the finance department, our city manager's office, and then a lot of work is done on all these budgets. And then there's a recommendation from the city manager, then council goes through a multi-month iterative process. So in that early stages where departments submit their proposals, kind of a question to y'all is, it sounds like these requested at 5 FTE that are civilians, that is additional headcount for the department at large, as opposed to readjusting headcount from sworn officers. Is that correct?
Well, I think that is part of our conversations with the budget office. They don't currently budget for all of the vacancies that we have. So we are in conversation with them about whether we would give up a full-time sworn or if they would go ahead and plan for that and add on our civilian overhead count.
Okay, so just a lot more crunching and thoroughness in the process of doing this analysis that budget and y'all will be working through. So it's not really clear yet where that may land in your proposals. Yeah, Manager Kimball.
Yes, thank you. And in the context of all of our broader organizational staffing needs, you just heard fire, you're hearing police, and there, I assure you are plenty more. We're in the process, though, of having a budget retreat this week, so you'll hear more.
Yeah, and appreciate that, city manager. But we have, for a couple of those positions, already identified that we will give up a full-time sworn position to fund those civilian positions. There's just a couple left that we've not discussed yet.
Thank you so much.
I have a question about our drone program. There seems to be a love-hate reaction to our drone program. Some people are really excited about the use of drones to be a first responder tool or even used in de-escalating matters. But I think people are a little squeamish about having more information and you all being more transparent about what you're watching, why you're watching, and if you're watching me, do I have access to that drone footage as if it were in policy around our fleet cam and our body cam. So I think people want to know more information. It seems like the drone has more, has a scope on a larger area than just a body cam or a fleet cam. And if a person is just by chance in that footage, do they have access to that footage? So there's a lot people want to know, and this is probably not the proper space because we don't have time to dive into it, but I think we probably need to take a deeper dive into our drone program. But any reactions on what I just stated, because I think the community is wanting more information and it's just not being readily available to them.
Well, first of all, thank you, Councilwoman Smith, for bringing that up. And hopefully the next couple of slides will answer all of your questions. We've implemented some slides here to address those comments and concerns that we're hearing from the community about the drone program. Next slide, please.
Let me first address, I don't want to be remiss and miss a couple of the points that you made in your program. We were committed from the start when we engaged in this collaboration with the fire department, with the city manager's input, to ensure that when we did this, we did it in such a way that transparency wouldn't be an issue that was requested. Outside of what is the normal for us within the law to contain, footage from a police entity, we want to make sure that everyone knows and understands the purpose of what we did here. And when we sought out, we didn't seek out first to get drones. We sought out the best way to employ a drone program. And what that meant was us reaching out to agencies across the country that had already done this. More specifically, had already done this successfully. And I say that because some were not as successful. And so we wanted to make sure that if we were going to put time, effort, and money into a program like this, we did it in a way that would be sustained, not in a way that ultimately would not be supported by the community. So we hope what we have done here and what I can give you, and it's very clear over the course of 2 years that 3 slides won't do it, but I hope we can at least hit some of the high points for you on what we've done, why we've done it. And so I would be remiss too if I didn't speak that, Chief Case spoke of Assistant Chief Knighton. He and I were kind of placed in charge of creating and starting this program. And so we've taken it from there to where we are now, but it is a joint effort. As you can see, what we hope to do is provide a more robust response. I think some of you have been privy to see that actually in action. And I think some of what has occurred here from some large gatherings that we've had to attend to, that you've seen what the drone and its capability can do. So I want to make sure that you know and understand from an agency perspective, also from just society, there are drones all over. And if we don't understand and acknowledge that they won't specifically be our drones, but we'll be very clear about when our drones are flying and who can see on a transparency page what that looks like. But we've already seen, and we know based on what's happening in and around our community, that your neighbor probably has a drone. And what laws that actually cover where they can go and what they can't do aren't enforced specifically because the FAA, that governing body, doesn't have the manpower to do it. And so as they become more readily available, as hobbyists take on the efforts of this, there's going to be a lot of drones in our community. So we will be very specific about what our drone program does. But in April of 2022, we created and implemented a UAV policy. That policy was based off several frontrunners in this space within public safety on what and how we would use these, what we would respond to, and what their ultimate goal would be. In August of that year, both fire and APD personnel attended Part 107 training, and this is FAA's entry-level training into becoming a full-time pilot, but it is required for all drone pilots. And so we didn't receive any drones until October of 2022, and that's when we employed our first UAVs. To date, we have now trained 55 operators between the two agencies, and we have a total of 10 aircraft. We have been able to do with that is respond to, as you can see, over 400 deployments. This is training and calls for service. The entire goal being that we can decrease response time, but we can also give real-time info directly to responding officers, to responding firemen, specifically to give them a better opportunity in what they're about to engage. One of the first wins we saw was an individual that is not known to us, but was a call with an individual wielding a knife downtown at Pritchard Park. The drone was able to get on scene in under a minute and zoom in on this individual to determine that he didn't actually have a knife in his hand. Now, he had a stick, and it could have been dangerous, but it did change the response, right? It changed that mind frame for a responding officer, and that's our goal. It allowed that engagement between officers and that individual to go differently. We've seen that throughout the country, and what we would like to say are wins and our response to it didn't escalate before they even arrived. And that's our overall goal of this program. Next slide. So to give you just a small snippet of what the policy looks like, this is the portion of it to give you our policy statement and what we hope to do with it. But overall goal is to protect lives, to give us an other means that aren't normally available, another resource that we can use that could be extremely effective in providing real-time information to officers. So again, it dictates the in-house training they have to have, their federal training they have to be, and then registration they have to have with the state. Both of our licensed pilots as well as our drones. We have from field deployments to pre-planned deployments, as well as any ongoing emergency. We also use the drones for crime scene mapping. Unfortunately, as we've discussed already, with having the traffic unit down, having this one more component of very quickly being able to get a drone in the air and give us some real-time aerial footage of what they're seeing gives investigators an opportunity to go back when they normally wouldn't have that. So the goal here is not to ever intentionally record or transmit images and locations of a person who would normally have privacy. That stays in alignment with what we have always stated. That could be somebody's residence, their yard, their enclosure. I would be remiss to not state here that that's our goal in utilizing the drones. The public doesn't have to follow that same kind of directive, so that you kind of understand any airspace above your house is not your airspace. And so we like to think of that as somebody's infringing upon where we're flying. And the goal for the police department is not to do that. But any individual with the drone doesn't have to follow that same directive. And I think that's where we will get a lot of community concern over how many drones they're seeing, not specifically that they're the cities, but overall what can be done to mitigate and change what this landscape looks like. And we will be an assistant to that, but it's truly difficult with the amount and number of drones that we're seeing. But for us, all of our flight data, all the recordings now with this cooperation with Axon in their management program will be uploaded directly to evidence.com. To Councilwoman Smith's point earlier, that is the same recording platform that we use for our body cams, in-car cameras. That will all be housed in one location and governed underneath the same law. That footage itself isn't looking to be utilized in any other way than what the call for service dictates, right? The same as if we're trying to get 2 or 3 officers there and you're going to have 3 body cam views. We're trying to give one more view. We're trying to get one more opportunity to see what they're seeing. Next slide, please. So we have proven in the short time that we've had these that we can decrease response time. Just in a training last week, we were able to get the drone from 100 Court Plaza over to a call for service on the Biltmore estate. We arrived roughly 4.5 minutes before any responding unit from fire or police could get there. That's a long response onto the actual call for service location. The drone was able to see that there was no active fire and could give that information back. It didn't mean we didn't respond, but it did mean we could change that response slightly, and that is our goal. For us on the police side, that's a force multiplier. We can use this in ways that we never were able to before, or we had to employ multiple units to do similar but not the same function. And so being able to see imagery on active crime scenes as well as active calls for service gives us a better approach from a management perspective as well as from a supervision on the road. Having this ability changes how I can respond to certain calls. It also is a cost-effective solution. We have invested some time, money, and effort into this program, but we've also seen how the turnaround for that has helped us employ various resources in areas that we normally wouldn't be able to. And so that giving us our overall goal is to provide justice for victims in cases. That's what we're seeking to do. And we can do this utilizing technology that wasn't available to us prior to now. So the policy that went in place was to ensure that we were actually more restrictive than what the FAA requires of individuals that are flying. And I think we have succeeded in that goal, and we will continue to amend that as necessary. And overall, the best thing, and I think to Councilwoman Smith's request, was we will share data off of the flights that we respond to that are not critical or case sensitive to the transparency dash page that we currently have. And I think that was one of the biggest points that the city manager made as a requirement when we sought out to create this program, was to ensure that we met that if the community wanted to see or wanted to know if that drone over their house was ours, they're going to be able to go to the transparency page and they're going to be able to see that here's a flight log. So this is the drones we did or we didn't use. I think that for us also alleviates the piece of there are going to be so many drones in the air from this point and then moving forward. They're not all the police department or fire department's drones. They're not all the cities. But ultimately, when we are flying, you will be able to see what it is and where we went.
Can I get clarity right now? Can I get some clarification? But if the footage is a part of an active investigation, then it might not be available on the portal. I don't know what.
Yes, so correct. I think this footage that will be contained from the drone itself will be maintained the same as body worn camera and other in-car camera recordings according to the law and how they're released.
Okay.
I think next slide, but that ends that portion if we have other questions.
I have a handful of questions. I'm really curious about this. I think it's an interesting opportunity for our community to increase response time and to diagnose what's going on site so that we can deploy more effectively. I think that could have safety implications for us. And so, and I think as my colleague Councilwoman Smith said, there's a lot of people that are just very concerned about this technology. And so I've been looking into it, and I had the opportunity to be down in Atlanta for the National League of Cities conference, the big national meeting. There were lots of vendors with drone technology. There were lots of security vendors. And I just kept asking, like, how is this being done well? Like, what are the big concerns? And just over and over and over, we would hear, just be as transparent as possible, provide as much information as possible. That still might not make everyone 100% comfortable, but I think seems like the essential ingredient for programs like this to really thrive in community with community support. And so a couple questions. One is, you all worked on and created the policy that had a beautiful acronym, Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Policy, UAV. And just curious, is that something that we can share with the public? And if not, why not? Like, if we're trying to pursue transparency, is that something that we can just get out there so folks really understand the letter of the law that y'all are following as you pursue this?
Great question. And yes, that policy, since it was published, has been available along with all of the other APD policies. So it is readily available, and it can be seen and viewed.
Awesome. Could someone shortcut my internet research and just send it to my inbox?
We can definitely get that to you.
The best at our website. And then the other, so I love hearing that. That also means, like, of course, I'm going to nerd out and read it, and I might have some more questions as I understand, but I think that really shows the spirit of the commitment to transparency. The other thing I wanted to know is, I'm just going to be really direct. Here's some concerns I've heard and wondering if we know this in our policy. Can the drones that we're currently using open doors or break windows, or do we deploy them for that purpose?
No. So we don't specifically have an aircraft that's designed to do what you just described, and no, we wouldn't utilize it for that purpose. I think if we're engaged in a situation that requires that, we're going to use other tools at our disposal.
Great, thank you.
I have a question to that. Is that a real thing? Or I've never heard of anything like that before, except in a Marvel movie.
There is, that's a good question. There is one drone currently on the market that is marketed as the ability to break glass. We researched the use of that and overall its overall purpose for what we were employing here, and did not find it as what we wanted to employ.
And just a request, if you're thinking on that ever changes, would love that to come to council before we talk about it, before it's deployed. Another question that came up and also was part of conversations when we were exploring using the Fusus technology with video on buildings. So I'll start with what my concern is that it's been pretty well documented that facial recognition software has some major flaws when looking at diversity of melanin in skin, to be really realistic, and that there's been some correlations to racial profiling with facial recognition software. And when we started pursuing Fusus this time last year, in partnership with the sheriff, it was explicit that our policy is that we aren't using any of the functionality that some tools offer when looking at facial recognition software for those tools. So my question is, do the drones are a camera, right? They're zooming in and looking at people. Are they using AI technology or smart technology to do any facial recognition, to try and do any profiling of who is on the ground before? Sorry, I'm getting more wordy in my thing. Is that part of this tool packet?
No, so I will answer that the camera capability on this technology is incredible. And we will see that increase moving forward. We do not use any AI-based technology within that camera to track and or to follow someone based on what you're describing. There are smart features to this to track in general a person, a car, an overall area. It is not based on AI. So as your concerns are stated, and many have known that AI has its limitations and has caused issues, that is not something that we employ. So if someone's utilizing a camera to identify a person, it's going to be based on that human interaction. So what that person sees and knows is an identifier to that person that they are or they are not looking for. Some of that comes to us from callers, right? So we get information from 911 dispatchers on a call description. An individual behind that drone will be the one determining if that's the person, not the computer itself.
Thank you. And then another question that I found in my research is that as the industry is pursuing this technology to try and solve problems like you addressed today, some states and some communities are going about it with a more of a regulatory approach. And so what I was trying to get to and couldn't get to quickly was that some states, it look like, require warrants before drones are used. And my sense is that we don't do that in North Carolina. So I don't know if I have a precise question on this, but curious if someone could speak to the dynamics around that conversation where some states are pursuing, because my sense is if there was a warrant required, it wouldn't be used in this exploratory manner, which y'all are using to get eyes on the site first, but it would be more about, I don't know, just could you speak a little bit to the dynamic of the warrant conversation in drones in your industry?
Yeah, and I think your question will also be assisted when you read through the policy because it does address this section. Specifically to when a warrant would be required, the drone doesn't get to forego that. It would also, we would seek and gain a warrant to utilize the drone in that instance. So I know that that's a very short response, but I think that's the best way to show that if it's required, the drone doesn't get to not get it. We will get it also. And I don't know if that kind of hits. And you are correct.
So there's certain, you don't require a warrant to dispatch someone on site, right? If that's not, that doesn't need that. So you can deploy the drone in that. But in cases to which a warrant is required by established law, the drone would go through that process. Yeah, I think I understand. Okay. Thank you for letting me kind of rattle through those, which brings, so I'll stop with my kind of litany of specific questions and open up a broader one on the theme that I've heard both Shanika or Councilwoman Smith mention it and myself of kind of the transparency process. I do know that, some people are still concerned. I also am hearing a lot of folks saying this is a great way to deal with our police shortage and can get us quicker response time. So I think there's a range of perspectives. Is there a way that as a community we could have some method, maybe it's like a frequently asked questions webinar or a portal? I guess I'm just wondering, I feel like if some community members could have access to asking some of these questions that I didn't think of today, and that we could have a conversation or a time where they had the opportunity to talk directly with how you're interpreting this policy, I think that could be interesting. So I don't mean to give a prescripted action. I guess my question is there some way that we can extend this conversation so that more than 3 councilwomen could have some questions? Because I think that trust is earned. And I think that the fact that you already have the policy out there is really showing the good faith in using this new technology. But with new things, if there's some way that we could do a community engagement touch or two, around this program. I'd love to hear what the community is curious about, and I believe that you would answer those questions just as well as you did today. So that's an idea and a curiosity. Curious if there's a way we could do that. You don't need to answer today per se, but just wanted to throw that out there for the dialogue.
No, and I appreciate it. And I think Chief Lamb and Chief Case would probably agree with the city manager that we would be open, not only open, but we would be happy to sit down and try to answer some of those concerns. I don't think we have from the start ever tried to hide anything that we are doing with the program. We're excited about what it can do. And ultimately, we know with the partners that it has brought to the table that we're also going to do more within the airspace itself, to being safer, with Mama Helicopter and with other agencies in the surrounding areas that have already reached out for assistance. We see this as a win for the city. Ultimately, as we kind of tread forward into areas that aren't necessarily already engaged from a public safety perspective, we will be some firsts in some arenas, and we're excited to bring those to the city. And I think it's only going to bring light into what you've described from a transparency piece, that no public safety agency needs to be worried about hiding what they're doing. They just need to be able to show how it has benefited the community. And that's where that support comes from. And I think we're on the right page with that. So hopefully you see that as well.
Fantastic. I'd love to, Manager Campbell, we can talk later of like what that next step could look like, how this committee could support if there's some type of public engagement around this. We can kind of brainstorm as is appropriate for us as policymakers to participate, but I'd love to make sure that we can be clear with the community what some next step might be when we know. And then my last thought was, could you remind the public where specifically they could find this policy on the website?
Yeah, you can Google the Asheville Police Department policies, and we have a public policy website. And so all of the police department policies are published, and anyone can access it. And I think Captain Silverman is sending you a shortcut to be able to access those policies. So and then also another way to engage with the department and finding out more about the drone program is to put an application in for our Citizens Police Academy, because we cover each one of our departments and our units within that academy. And it's a great place to get a firsthand look at it and then ask questions as well. So if there's no other questions on drones, I'll go ahead.
I do have two more questions, and they'll be really quick. In the world where folks are posing as officers, and you have a lot of impersonators, I'm just wondering if there is a way we can mark our drones so they will have a distinction from just public use of drones. Second question, I just need clarity in an area of utilization. This program has been touted as a supplement to officers, like the workforce. So I'm just trying to make sure that in what I'm hearing correctly. So the drone program is not used on the preventative side of law enforcement, which means to deter or to detect, but we're using our program primarily and solely on the response to calls for service.
Yeah, that is correct. We're primarily using it to respond to calls for service. It is a life-saving tool, and it provides real-time intelligence and overwatch to potentially very dangerous situations.
And any hopes or interest in marking our drones so they'll be able to tell this is an operation of law enforcement and not just a person snooping or doing what they do?
So all APD and AFD drones are marked. Now, to where they fly and your ability to see them that high up, it may be harder in full transparency to see the marking on this, but they are all marked as to which one is owned by each entity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. If there's no more, then we'll go to the last portion, which is crime stats. Next slide, please. So our 2023 citywide crime stats, with the implementation of data-driven strategies has been instrumental in achieving significant reductions in both violent and property crime citywide. These positive impacts were observed in specific districts. We had an 18% decrease in violent crime and a 13% decrease in property crime, and that's compared to last year. Next slide, please. So looking at citywide violent crime from 2018 to 2023, citywide violent crime has improved compared to last year. If you can see the numbers, we're returning to pre-pandemic levels. There's been an 18% reduction in violent crime, and it can be attributed to focusing on data-driven crime reduction efforts. Next slide. So looking at the last quarter, so this is last October, November, and December, we had fewer crimes reported in downtown, fewer crimes reported in violent crimes in Baker, which is north and east, and then West Asheville experienced a little more violent crime, especially out towards exit 44 in the western portion, but overall had fewer reductions. And South District had 5 more violent crimes compared to last year. Next slide. Looking at citywide property crime, it continues to decline. You can see we've been on a steady decline since 2019, and that's attributed to our focusing on data-driven reports. And I also have to put in the caveat that we also think that's from some underreporting as well. So I would like, as we increase our staffing, to be able to increase our customer service for officers to be able to meet people and take reports on those crimes in progress calls, because there's what we'll find is there's better reporting there as well. Next slide. So looking at property crime in the last quarter, Charlie District downtown reported a 15% drop in violent crime. Northeast District reported a 15% increase. That's primarily along that Tunnel Road corridor. West Asheville had 25 more property crimes compared to last year. And then South District had 11 less crimes compared to 2022. Next slide. So the key takeaways from this is that with the implementation of data-driven strategies, it's helped us to have significant reductions in both violent and property crime. We had violent crime decrease by 18%, and then property crime is decreased by 13%. So hopefully we are continuing to progress and hit those pre-pandemic levels, and then hopefully see that trend continue through 2024. Next slide. So the overall presentation summaries is APD is organized into 2 bureaus with 5 divisions and is committed to public safety through proactive policing, emphasizing community engagement, and conducting crime reduction efforts and investigations to reduce crime. We have a sworn authorized staff of 238 with 75 vacancies, 5 in post-BLET and 5 in the current academy. Professional civilian staff programs allow us to free up officers from more serious crimes. And we have the APD and AFD comprehensive drone program, which in my opinion is a life-saving tool. And then lastly, violent and property crime has declined compared to 2022, and we appear to be returning to pre-pandemic levels. Next slide, please. And that's the end of our presentation. Are there any additional questions?
Glad to see the numbers heading in the right direction. Let's hope that this weird global experience we just had with the pandemic, that we're moving squarely towards the other side of it as far as the negative consequences it had on our community. All right. If there's no more questions, we do close our meeting with public comment.
Before you go on to public comment, I just wanted to give a public congratulations to Liam. Congratulations to you, and I look forward to seeing what your leadership will bring.
Thank you so much.
Second that. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone's hard work. All right, I will shift to the 6th and final agenda item of our meeting, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment on the line for the closing public comment portion of this agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, the original caller from the beginning of the meeting has remained with us. Caller And then there is a second caller as well. So caller ending in 0852. Let's try this again. You are unmuted. You have 3 minutes. Caller ending in 0852. All right, I will go ahead and shift. Hopefully we can figure something out, but I'm going to go ahead and shift to the second caller. Caller ending in 6029. You are unmuted and you have 3 minutes. You may begin.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Patrick Conant. I wanted to comment on a few items that came up during this meeting. First, I did want to note that the APD policy on the drone program was added to the public policy list during this meeting. I checked for it when you mentioned it earlier. It wasn't there. And then it appeared right after Councilmember Ullman asked about it. And I'm glad it's online now, but I just want to note that the public hasn't had easy access to this information prior to today's meeting. I appreciate all the high-level information on the drone program, but I agree with Councilmember Smith that this item should come back as a specific agenda item for additional discussion. While I hear that APD put thought into designing and implementing the drone program, all of the work prior to this point has been out of the view of the public or this committee. And that is not how you build trust or operate with transparency. We need more information regarding how these drones are utilized. What kinds of issues are they used to respond to and how? We need greater transparency and data-driven reporting, ideally via the open data portal. Most importantly, we need a more detailed analysis of the policy governing the use of drones. In particular, I'm wondering if APD uses these drones in accordance with the city's civil liberties resolution. That resolution prohibits the collection of information and surveillance of individuals or groups based on political activities. However, at the same time, there's a publicized incident of APD using their drones to surveil the opening of a bookstore in West Asheville. People have also noticed drone deployments at public gatherings and protests. It's past time that we should shift course and start a community conversation around how this program should be implemented. That means we need more clarity around how this technology is used, and importantly, what oversight and public accountability mechanisms exist to ensure it's deployed responsibly. I also wanted to provide an update to this committee regarding APD's data sets and the transparency dashboard. I believe most data sets are back online on the open data portal, but if you go to APD's transparency dashboard now, there's links to a public crime map, a crime trend dashboard, traffic stops by race dashboard, gun discharge data dashboard. If you click any of those links, it goes to a page not found. This page used to also have a dashboard that showed citywide crime trends, and I just really think that this committee should ask staff to report back on the status of these dashboards. When can the public expect to see their access to these important tools restored? Yeah, and there's other things I'd like to comment on, but I'm at time, so thank you all very much.
Thank you, caller. Were we able to get the other caller to a point where they could make comment today?
I will try again.
Thanks.
See. Oh, we did receive another one in the meantime. Caller ending in 6029. I will open the line and you have 3 minutes. Caller ending in 6029.
That's me again.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I already spoke.
Sorry, thank you. Caller ending in 6809. You have 3 minutes and you may begin.
Thank you so much. This is Mark Delk, and I am calling in to congratulate you guys for doing what I think is a really good job. And specifically, the appointment as interim chief of Mike Lamb. I got to know Mike back when my little wife and I lived in Shiloh, and I was very impressed with him. I liked the way he treated everybody like he would like to be treated. And I've heard very, very good feedback from a number of officers and retired officers who have known Mike for a long time. And what I've heard today here on the little meeting has just confirmed that even more. I have especially been impressed by the outlook of how the drones are used. They're used to decrease response time, and they're used to hold officers accountable as well. And, you know, I understand there's probably some hiccups in when policies are posted and that sort of thing. That happens with government sometimes. But I really do appreciate Ms. Campbell's selection of Mike as the interim chief. I hope that Mike will stay on as permanent chief. And thank you again.
Okay, we can try one last time for caller ending in 0852. You were unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, yay.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Jensen Gelfond. I live in West Asheville. I just want to say I do appreciate the robust debate in the room today. Lots of questions being asked. And I think that's just the sign of a healthy space. So really appreciate that. And, you know, with all the complexity that occurred with these issues, you know, it's great to see the inquisitiveness from our city council members. And I just keep asking myself, you know, how much more productive would this conversation be if this meeting was being held in person with, you know, remote or hybrid options being offered. I know many of us know firsthand just how much more productive a meeting can be when people can look each other in the eye in a room and have that community. And not only the additional productivity of having the city council people and the city government employees there, but also various community groups. I know there are a wide variety of perspectives on public safety and the environment. And it would, I think, be helpful to have people be able to attend these in person and be able to have, you know, the access to ask questions maybe before or after the meeting and be in better community with each other now that COVID is receding. So I continue to attend these meetings virtually, but I would love those questions to be asked about, you know, when are we going to move to in-person and when are we going to increase the accessibility of this incredibly important group of people so that we can get more done and collaborate more. I hope you'll consider that. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we were able to get your comments in today. All right. Any further people on public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. With that, we're a little bit over the scheduled time, but well worth it. What a robust conversation. Sounds like we'll have more on this topic. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, everybody, for all the preparation you did for this. And several of you, we will see later in person at City Council tonight. With that, meeting is adjourned.